Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Steve Millard. I'm the president and CEO of the Greater Akron Chamber, and I'm here today with colleagues from Cap Trust, Gray Kennedy, and Michael Conant from Transamerica. We're going to talk today about a new offering that we've got at the Greater Akron Chamber designed specifically for small, mid-sized businesses who are looking to create an absolutely outstanding benefit program for their employees. We are in webinar mode here today. We're recording this, and so if you've got questions or you've got things that you want to put out there for us to answer, you can use the Q&A function in the webinar. Just drop your question in there, and Ann is going to be monitoring that on the back end and letting me know about questions that might be out there for us. And if you have questions that come up as we go along, feel free to shout them out. We're going to probably be a little loose in our format here today to allow for some dialogue between Gray and Michael and I to sort of share some of the things that we know you're probably thinking about as you think about this option for your company. So again, look forward to sort of sharing this with you. I think this is a great opportunity for you and for your employees to think about. And so today's purpose for our webinar, let's see if I can get this right here, is to introduce this new solution, as I mentioned. We're going to talk about how this is designed to meet the needs of our small and mid-sized businesses, and also help you understand how this is going to help you with better outcomes, not only for the finances related to your program, but also for the kind of benefit and kind of support you can provide to your employees as they think about the retirement solutions that they might have and the benefits they might have available as employees of your company. So I'm going to have Gray and Michael just introduce themselves very briefly. You'll hear more about their firms going forward, but Gray and Michael, why don't you just a quick introduction of who you are, and then we'll get into this.
Mike, I'll go first if that's okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us here this afternoon. We're excited about the opportunity that we're about to present to everybody. As Steve mentioned, my name is Gray, with one of the largest registered investment advisors in the country, Cap Trust, there in Akron, Ohio. And I've been in the business, it's my 26th year. So a long time experience, and really excited about this opportunity because it's something new and different in the 401k and retirement plan space arena. So thanks.
And good afternoon. I'm Mike Conant with Transamerica Retirement Solutions. We're also equally as excited to be a part of this rollout. We're a 401k provider known nationally, but particularly for opportunities like this with groups of companies, and we can't be any more excited than we are about rolling this out to you today. I've been with the organization for over 23 years, and I'm located here in Northeast Ohio as well.
So you could say you got lots of old guys involved in this, or just lots of experience, right? So that's what we'll sort of say. So, this program is newly created. It's just been rolled out. And really, it was created because we had an opportunity with some new legislation, Secure Act, about a year or two ago that came out and allowed organizations like ours to provide this kind of benefit to our members. As far as we know, we're one of the early sort of organizations who's in a position to roll this out. And I feel like we've picked some really great partners to allow us to be as successful as possible here. So let's just talk briefly about how this works. So let me see if I can get this slide up. There we go. So basically, the Greater Akron Chamber is the primary sponsor of the plan. And we have set the framework up, and then each additional employer that comes into this plan is an additional adopting employer. So you have support from the entire program, from the service team for the multiple employer program, from the financial advisors at Cap Trust, all the communications and installation specialists and all the things that you need to have the plan run effectively. You also have the ability to design aspects of the plan per the needs of your company. So not everybody has to have the exact same plan. There's a broad framework we've created for all the plans. And we've also provided sort of a default option. So if you're indifferent to some of the different provisions, we have a suggested set of provisions that we think make sense for most companies, but you can tweak that as you go along. And that's the installation and conversion process. At the Greater Akron Chamber, we've just gone through our installation and conversion in the last a few weeks or so. It was a very thorough process. The support was great from all the partners, and I understand a lot more even about our own plan than I did at the beginning. So I think it's a great support that happens for you in this process. It also generally allows you to reduce your own liability for running one of these plans, and it consolidates all the reporting. So if you're a company right now that has to do your own audit every year because you have more than 100 employees in a year, you won't have to do that any longer. That's something that we will do for the plan overall, and it will service you and your organization. So that's a cost savings right there for those of you who are currently doing those kinds of audits. But again, it's a group plan that allows us all to get the benefits that we need for our employees in a much more streamlined approach than having to set up these plans one at a time. Do I have that about right, Gray and Mike?
Spot on, Steve.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Thanks. Well, I appreciate it when you validate me. So thank you for that. Appreciate that. All right. So basically, what are some of the advantages to the MEP? And I think I've got the same slide here. Yeah. All right. So the advantages to the MEP, saving time. So working on this stuff, if you're in a smaller business, you know how hard it is to keep track of benefits and how much time has to go into all the administrative parts of your business. This plan will help you save time by not having you have to dive in and do those things. You've got a great team, a seasoned team, sort of world-class professionals, best practices who can help you save time in the program. Also, the fiduciary support and cost savings are there as well. And so I don't know if Mike or if Gray, if one of you want to talk about some of these specifically in terms of how they work in the plan.
Sure, I can talk real quickly on Steve, if that's okay. And then Mike, you can chime in as well if you'd like. So along the lines of fiduciary support, obviously one of the items that we often see with small employers is they get a little bit rattled about liability of offering a retirement plan to their employees, because there are some items that you need to make sure you take care of in terms of monitoring the program and making sure that the program runs up to certain expectations. So within this system, we've kind of put a fiduciary vault, so to speak, around the program, where CapTrust, our firm, operates in what's known as a 338 discretionary advisor on the investment portion. So we take that liability away from the adopting employers, make decisions about the investments, and then report back to a committee on a quarterly basis, making sure that everything lives up to criteria that we've set forth within what's known as an investment policy. And then additionally, as we go through the slides here, you'll recognize that we've hired a third-party administrator known as Ray and Associates. They serve in what's known as a 316 capacity, which again is fiduciary protection to employers around the administrative component of offering a retirement plan. That's an often overlooked element to the benefit that we're talking about here today. And so having somebody as a fiduciary to support all the plan administration and compliance is just a huge added benefit. And when we talk about working with retirement plans, it's very rare that we have a 316 fiduciary solution. So this is something that a lot of you would probably normally not see or have access to, and we're excited to have it as part of the program. Mike, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'll echo all of those comments as well, and particularly in relationship to the administrative and operational component. When you think about a typical small business, oftentimes there may just not be ample resources internally to dedicate the time towards completing a lot of these routine day-to-day tasks associated with offering a retirement plan. So not only do you have the organization that's going to be serving in that fiduciary capacity to you, but in terms of efficiencies and building out an infrastructure where you don't have to do much, that's also one of the inherent advantages of having professional service providers kind of take care of these day-to-day tasks. And then the third bullet point on the screen there is pretty obvious. Right? This is a group plan. So by aggregating all of our respective assets together underneath one roof, there is going to be the potential opportunity of some cost savings, whether we be talking about, to Steve's point earlier, about the audit cost. If you're a organization that has a plan that is subject to an audit, that audit expense will potentially be different in this kind of arrangement. If you're a company that's never had a plan before, there are typically some fairly significant upfront and installation costs associated with the plan, and we've done our best to kind of dial that down to a very, very competitive and reasonable rate. So hopefully in all different capacities, we're going to be able to provide some cost savings in addition to the other items that you see on the screen.
Yeah, and I think that there's a variety of these different kinds of benefits, and we've talked to some of these already. But one of the things that I learned very quickly, and sort of as somebody responsible for the 401k plan for our team, is that when you have somebody who requests a distribution, you've got to handle that. When you've got information and compliance testing that has to happen, you got to handle that. There's all kinds of little things you have to handle when you've got a 401k that just don't fit sometimes into the flow of your day to day, especially if you don't have a dedicated HR person who's on top of these things. So between the folks at Transamerica, the folks at Ray and Associates, and the folks at Cap Trust, we've really built a team to ensure that all those things that could go wrong in your 401k plan are things that are being attended to by the team on your behalf. And so you see some of the additional benefits here in terms of the portability of the benefit for folks, the ease for the adopting employers. It really is pretty turnkey for those of you who decide that you want to get on board with the plan. The administrative work is something, again, that I don't want to underestimate for folks. I mean, you think about these things that you've got to do, and I don't know, Mike, if you want to talk to some of these things, because a lot of these things are things that you guys can be involved with in supporting the individual, employees that are in the plan.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, if you look at Department of Labor statistics, if you look at other areas of a plan where things oftentimes just get overlooked, it's a lot of these administrative and operational tasks. Over 90% of the infractions that occurred and were ultimately, and sanctions were ultimately levied by the Department of Labor, had to do with administrative and operational errors. And so by bringing in professional firms that take on the liability and also execute on all these tasks, it's hopefully going to put us in a position where we're going to alleviate any of those potential challenges down the line. But these are, if you start to look down this list, there's a laundry list of things that are simply labor intensive. And, different communications have to go out to different employee types at different points throughout the year. And, tasking someone at a small business to handle that on top of all of your other duties is a little bit unfair and unreasonable. And so that was the purpose of creating this administrative offloading structure, is to kind of take care of literally 80 to 90% of these day-to-day tasks and move them over onto our plate.
With 20 plus years in working with small businesses in employee benefits, this is one of the areas that often you want to provide that benefit to your employees, but you sort of get yourself into trouble because it comes with a whole range of additional things you need to do. The other piece of this is the whole fiduciary responsibility piece. And this is around making sure you're doing things in the appropriate way, per the appropriate guidelines, as sort of Mike referred to. And, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit, Gray, about the investment fiduciary responsibilities that Cap Trust takes on for folks in the plan.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So this is a very good slide. When you offer a 401k plan, it does come with fiduciary responsibility, which basically just says you have to look out in the best interest of your employees and your plan participants, and you can't really do any sort of self-dealing or look out for the company or even perhaps committee members or leaders of an organization. You can't look out really for them only and not the rest of your employees. So I mentioned these two items here on the right, the 316 administrative fiduciary, that is the third-party administrator that we've hired, Ray and Associates. They provide all of those bullet points there, and Mike just touched on some of them. I will tell you, even in my 26 years of doing this, I can't tell you how many times I've had a client where we recognize that they were not doing something correctly from a plan design or plan compliance perspective, and then you have to go back and correct it. It often involves a lot of work, time, effort, and sometimes even money to make those corrections. Simple things like tracking eligibility and making sure that once somebody becomes eligible, they're actually offered the opportunity to get in the plan. If we, for some reason, have a client that didn't do that properly, we have to go back and do a lot of work to correct it. So Ray and Associates does a good job from a fiduciary perspective to make sure those type of items are covered. And then the other bullet, that the number I mentioned, and these are all, these numbers are probably meaningless to you, but they're sections of the IRS code. But essentially, 338 investment advisor is somebody that takes on discretion for the investment choices that are offered in the program. So our team at Cap Trust is about 60 employees strong. from a research perspective. And then within those 60 individuals, we form an investment committee that oversees all of our 338 investment lineups. So we're going out to the marketplace, we're reviewing and interviewing managers, we're looking at their performance, their risk tolerance, their expenses, and those types of items, and ultimately putting together the best of class investment lineup for the program. And I'm going to show some of that to you here as we go through the presentation here a little bit later, but suffice it to say that we put this program in place with the best investment lineup possible and very low cost institutional mutual funds, essentially, or collective investment trusts that are offered in the program. So again, from a fiduciary perspective, we find that employers, small employers, sometimes shy away from offering a retirement plan because they don't want to take on the liability. And we recognize that, and we know it's real. So that's why we put together kind of I wouldn't call it foolproof, but it's about as far as you can go from protecting overall liability of offering a retirement plan to employees.
Well, I think one of the things that that Ray and others can talk to you about as you consider this for your own employees is a 401k plan gives you a ton of leverage as an owner to be able to not only provide for your employees, but to give yourself some more flexibility in terms of how you create savings for yourself in the long term. So there's lots of different tools that you can use out there. The 401k program is really a very exceptional tool that benefits not only your own long-term needs as an employer and as an owner, but also for your employees as well. So I just wanted to also share, as you think about the role then that the chamber plays in this, we are kind of coordinating across all of these entities. There's a lot of partners, and you can see in this chart, that are involved. But we also will have a committee that is made up of representatives of the different companies that are in the plan. And just like for our health benefit program, that committee really acts in some ways as the guiding sort of governance for the program, so that your interests are represented as an employer, as a participant in the plan, and they are asking the hard questions of our investment advisors, of our administrative team, of others to make sure they're doing what they've got to do. So they really serve as an extension of you, providing oversight of the partners that drive the plan and to ensure we're doing the things that need to be done. And so we take this very seriously because we know that your trust is tied into these programs, and we know how complicated that can be. So we're going to work really hard to make sure that we are representing our employers in this plan in the best way possible. And as you can see, the other partners here, we have the investment fiduciary with Cap Trust, as Gray talked about. Transamerica is our record keeper, doing all that hard work of keeping track of what's going on in the plan. Ray and Associates is dealing with all of the day-to-day plan operations on your behalf. The chamber is the overall sponsor. Each of your companies would be adopting employers. So again, a limited fiduciary role. You're not dealing with the plan administration, but you are designing the program that makes sense for your employees and for yourself. And then we have additional advisor and TPA support. Again, those same partners, Cap Trust and Ray and Associates. But there's a lot that has to come together. Absent a plan like this, all those boxes are pretty much you as the owner. And so that's one of the things that I think this multiple employer plan allows you to do, is to offload that a little bit and provide this great benefit for yourself and for your employees. A couple of questions about some of the partners that we have here. Mike, I'll let you talk about Transamerica and your experience and your size. But we did a deep look for partners in this program. And each of these partners are the result of RFPs that we did and outreach that we did to look for the very best partners for the program. Can you talk for a minute or two, Mike, about Transamerica?
Sure. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, this is an area that Transamerica has always had an exclusive focus in on. Close to 2 decades of experience in working with these kinds of group-oriented plans. And you can see on the screen the number of companies and the assets under management associated with those organizations involved in these group planned arrangements. But at the end of the day, what Transamerica is doing is serving in a record-keeping capacity. So the participant experience is going to be one in which they will interface with Transamerica on a daily basis. So whether that's through the website, through our call centers, through the mobile app, education materials, participant statements, all the information related to how a participant can gain access to seeing and viewing and transacting within their account is associated with Transamerica. we just have an extensive experience in this particular area of plan. Over 20% of the plans that are set up this way in the entire country are associated with Transamerica. Over half of all of our new business come from companies and organizations similar to yours. So it's an extensive area of expertise for us. In every one of our departments, we have folks that specialize in this group plan arrangement. So we're excited to be a part of this, and we're excited to roll out some of these new enhanced services for you.
Yeah, and I'm going just to sort of connect the question or two that we have. When we talk about there being a new opportunity to create this plan from the Secure Act recently, it's for organizations like us to be in this space. But prior to that change, if you were in an industry vertical where it was sort of all dentists, for example, or all or your union or folks that are very similar situated, there were these multiple employer programs in the past that were available. What's new about what we can do now is bring folks together based on geography or based on the fact that they're part of the chamber to do this. And so it's a different kind of plan. It's got different kind of requirements. But again, the capacity and the competencies that Transamerica has had over time was something we found really attractive here. Plus their platform was the most ready for really running a group program the way we thought it had to run. Thanks, Mike. And then we don't have Paul McHugh, our partner from Ray & Associates, on the line today, but Ray is that TPA that we talked about. And we've talked a little bit about the role that they play, but these guys are doing all the nuts and bolts of the day-to-day work on the plan, making sure that the contributions are getting put in correctly, making sure that all the things that you specify and the way you set your plan up are being followed. So these guys are really good at the day-to-day work. Ray & Associates is a regional firm, a CPA firm that focuses on a lot of these pension type benefits. So they've got deep experience here, and we've been excited to work with them. They brought a whole lot of value as we've been working through the conversations with this. I don't know if you guys have anything additional you want to say about Ray before we move on to the next show.
I'd probably just add 2 comments on the slide, Steve, if I can. So there is a bullet there that talks about CFEX certified. That's pretty important. So that's an independent fiduciary monitoring program that actually comes in and audits services that are provided by both investment advisor firms and third-party administrative firms. And to pass that certification, it requires you to be really at the top of your game. So I think it's important to know that they are CFEX certified, and it's a pretty rare situation where we find third-party administrators that do that to make sure that what they're doing is exactly what they should be doing. And then the other key point here is what you see there in caps, where it says adopter keeps control of key plan features. As we go through the program, if you were to become an adopter, we build your plan design, and you are able to customize it to a certain extent based on what your organization wants, not necessarily what the chamber has put into their plan. So things like your employer contribution, your vesting schedule, when employees become eligible, those type of things are all customizable. And we'll be sure as you go through the process to identify, those things that you're able to really control based on what the objectives of your organization might be. Just want to point that out real quick, Steve.
Thanks, I appreciate that, Gray. Why don't you keep going, Gray? Talk a little about Cap Trust.
Sure, absolutely. So I mentioned we're one of the largest registered investment advisors in the country. We are based out of Raleigh, North Carolina. You can see what we call our tower there on the left-hand side in the picture. I've been in business now for over 35 years. Our local team is led by a gentleman named Steve Wilt, very active in the Akron community, a longtime resident of Akron. Our offices are right on Main Street near the park, Huntington Park. We do have a strong employee ownership base. So of our close to 800 employees, about half of them actually own shares of the company. So, a lot of skin in the game. So we're all working towards the same objective. As I mentioned, we focus in the 401k space. We now have over 2,000 institutional clients through about 48 offices throughout the country. And you can see those locations listed there at the bottom. Very high client retention rate. The Akron Chamber of Commerce has been a long-term client. That's how we actually got to where we are today. We recognized the opportunity to form this MEP. We'd already been the advisor to their own 401k plan but we really felt that there was an opportunity for us as we actually looked at what we call the smaller 401k space. We historically have thought it's both overpriced and underserved, and we'd like to find a solution to kind of change the outcomes of those smaller plans. And then we serve, actually that number is a little dated. That says just under 500 billion in assets. We're closer to about 800 billion in assets. And the reason that's important is it gives us access and leverage in the marketplace. So when I tell you we act as a discretionary investment manager, we're going out and we're talking to Vanguard and we're talking to Fidelity and we're talking to American funds. And we're not just talking to like their salespeople, we're talking with the portfolio managers to make sure that we're real comfortable with the philosophy of their fund and the direction that it's headed. So that is important to note, that the size of our organization in terms of what we oversee gives us access to those managers to have the conversations that are important and critical in delivering successful outcomes.
And I think that's super important, that deep local connection with that broad capability. One of the things that results in is the ability to provide so just some really great deals and really great cost structure. Many of you, as you look at the investment lineup that we have here, I'm just going to put that up here real quick, Gray. The investment structure that we have here, it's kind of hard to read, but it is available as you sort of review the program. These are funds that you may have access to in a plan that you have already, or you may generally sort of be aware of, but the pricing for these is truly, truly out of reach for small companies outside of a program like this. I don't know, Greg, if there's anything to say about this lineup or the way you think of it.
Yeah, so this is important too. So we mentioned the fact that our research team has put together a world-class investment lineup. And you can see if the screen, I know like Steve mentioned, it's hard to see, but this is some performance numbers as of the end of December, but you probably recognize some of the world-class strategies that we offer here. And one thing I want to point out is when we talk about like index investing, if you're familiar with index investing, low cost is kind of the driver of the best performance. And we look at, for example, in the large cap blend space, we offer the Northern Trust S&P 500 index. When you go over here on the right, you can see it's at a cost of 2 basis points or 0.02%. That's lower than the likes of, Fidelity, Schwab, and Vanguard, who are the leaders in this space. Because again, back to cap trust and our leverage and size, we negotiated directly with Northern Trust to create these collective investment trusts specifically for our clients. So one of the items that we like to really focus on when we look at index investing is cost. And the more we can drive down that cost, the better the overall performance. So we're really delighted at the opportunity to deliver institutional type pricing that you'd probably see in a plan that's, $1 billion plus in assets. And we're able to bring it down to the smaller size 401k space. So something we're extremely excited about as we continue to build out this program.
And I think that's important because, again, there's a lot of folks out there who are adding on 401k programs to other benefits that you may purchase from them, payroll companies who are providing these kinds of things. And if you haven't been in a full service plan where your participants are getting investment advisory support and help, which really makes a difference in the way they sort of think about how they invest for their long term. I think that's one of the big features here that's different than some of the low cost sort of add-ons that you might do to your typical payroll. But the cool part is this is also a low cost program. So one of the things that we can do for you as you're looking at these options is, look, our goal at the Chamber is to make sure that you get into a plan that makes sense for you. And if you're already in a plan that is good for you, we're going to tell you that. We don't have a desire to kind of move you from one plan to another for no additional benefit to you. Our goal is to ensure that if this plan fits for you, we get you into the plan. If it doesn't fit for you, if you've got a better option someplace else, we're going to tell you that. We're going to give you your sort of apples to apples comparison so you see what you're looking at. But this is a space where apples to apples is hard to understand if you're not in the business. And so there's lots of fine print and there's lots of details in all these plans and programs. And so it's really important that you sort of walk through and get an understanding of it, ask a lot of questions, and get comfortable with the opportunities that are here. As a chamber, we are sort of standing behind this plan and have really kicked the tires on it and know that it can be helpful to you. And like I said, sometimes you got to eat your own dog food, and that's what we're doing here, right? All of our staff are on this plan, just like your team would be on the plan as well. and we found it to be a superior alternative to what we were offering before. So I don't know, Gray or Mike, you guys want to say anything more about that? But I think the next step really for all of you would be to get that disclosure statement to us and really take a look at the costs and the features between your plan and this plan.
Yeah, so I appreciate that, Steve, and I'll reiterate a little bit what Steve said. We have had already some adopters of the program. We're up to about a handful already as we just literally launched last month, so that's terrific. We're looking forward, obviously, at adding more. And I'm the point person to help out with that initial analysis through what's known as a fee disclosure 408B2 notice. If you have a plan and you can share that with us, I can perform the analysis to give you a comparison of what this program looks like compared to what you already have in place. And if you don't have a plan, we can just have a conversation about getting one started. Actually, one of our current adopters is a startup plan, and they're big fans of the program already. And I would also probably just reinforce what Steve said. We've actually had potential adopters come to us, and I've performed that analysis for them. And we made the determination that what they have in place already is actually great for them, and it doesn't make sense to move into the MEP. And those conversations are totally fine with us. Again, our whole idea about our business is creating the best possible outcomes for folks in your employ. So if it doesn't make sense, we're going to tell you that. And we have no problem doing so because, again, it's all about just making sure that the outcomes are as best as possible. So I'll stop there. And Mike, I don't know if you have any other comments.
So I'm not going to cut Mike off here. I don't know if he's
Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, great. So if you've got questions, specific questions, please drop them in the Q&A. We're close to the end of our conversation here today. But I do want to encourage you to take a look. We have been building this literally over the last year or so. It's taken that much time to ensure we get everything lined up, all the documentation in place, all the legal requirements in place. As you may know, if you're part of our multiple employer health arrangement, you know that we are pretty fastidious about the details on things. We want to make sure that they meet the needs of our members and they meet our standards, and that we can maintain and manage them in a way that's beneficial to our employers. So it's taken time to set up, but we're excited to begin to be able to roll this out now. Would love to have you as part of the program. Would love to have you consider it for yourself and for your employees.